to, rethink about the reselling aspect of all the things because it's getting out of hand. Selling Forever 21 for over 100 quid is literally just you making fun of our intelligence. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome if you're new. Welcome back if you're revenant. Please consider subscribing if you like everything and anything about secondhand fashion, chaotic styling, and yapping. For today's video, I want to give my 2 cents in the Depop seller drama related to the Sabrina Carpenter dress because I feel like that it's actually a really nice follow up from my last week's video where I talk about all the trashy clothes that now we're finding in the thrift stores. And in a comment, a lot of you actually mentioned, rightfully so, about the fact that, like we also need to address resellers and address about how they gorge prices, how they literally make a, like, in a way, a mockery of all the things, which basically makes the whole secondhand fashion world a little bit harder to really find good gems. First, we're going to talk about the Depop drama dress. The whole story is Sabrina Carpenter, an American pop singer, celebrated her 25th birthday not so long ago. And for her birthday, she was wearing this really beautiful gold silk dress. And her stylist revealed that that silk dress, he got it from Depop, which everyone was kind of in a way in awe because they would never really think that they would get like a secondhand piece off of Depop, especially coming from a celebrity. And Sabrina Carpenter is quite also known for like her aesthetic. She's very girly girl. She's a super short girl, and when you look at her and her aesthetic, it's super girly. So I feel like that she's also like that celebrity that very much inspires a lot of fashion girlies because she has a very specific aesthetic that is very, you know, recognizable to her. And if you look at, for example, her latest single, Espresso, I feel like that Espresso, not only everyone and their mothers keep talking about that song or dancing on the tune of that song, but like the whole video clip of it is also very much kind of embodying her aesthetic in general. And so basically, so her stylist was like, yeah, I got it from Depop, and I think the girl from Depop who sold the dress even did like a TikTok. Good for her. Like it's quite amazing, and it gives her quite much traffic if a celebrity stylist got your dress off of your shop and she wore it for her birthday. Especially that, like I feel like that so many people were drooling over that dress. And so, like, when people had a peek at that girl's shop, people were not happy. People were not happy because they found out that she was actually selling fast fashion brands at a gorging price, like at such a marked up price that people were like, the hell is this? So, obviously, the internet being the internet, people dragged her. And like one example of the things that she was selling or that she's still selling on her shop was some sequin Forever 21 shorts that she labeled as rare and vintage that she was selling for over $200. Forever 21, $200. It was just like an insane thing to believe that someone is selling some Forever 21, a very well known fast fashion brand, at such a marked up price. So, of course, then people starting, kind of questioning the whole ethics of resellers and reselling because if you are selling secondhand Forever 21 at such a marked up price when, mind you, secondhand is supposed to be slightly cheaper because it's reused clothes. It kind of then question, like, how is this whole secondhand market reselling thingy working? Because why are you selling Forever 21 shorts up to over 200% the original markup? It was just so insane. Who do you think you were fooling for some sequin shorts? And because it's fast fashion, because it's Forever 21, that it's not the most well made pair of shorts. It is made out of the most cheap fabric in a very deplorable condition, made somewhere in the global south when people are actually like barely paid, or even child labor, or just modern labor and modern slavery in general. So when you think about the whole kind of, you know like ethics behind just the shorts, to then have someone having the goal to be like, you know what, I'm gonna sell it for literally 200 times the price that it is originally. How long did she get away with it? Because if she has no shame selling Forever 21 shorts at this price, girl, what else were you like selling that was literally fast fashion and that you were just marking up the price so you could make much profit? So it kind of then ignited a whole discourse about reselling, which is not new. It just brought it back. A lot of people have been complaining for years, or even people complaining about how so many of those resellers are buying at thrift shop and charity shops, and they buy it at a very low price, but then they gorging up the price when they're reselling the whole thing. And so it has been going on for quite some time about the whole issue of, okay, but are resellers really kind of authentic? Are they really ethical? Like where is the drawing the lines? And that's something that I'm glad that we kind of now bringing up, and it's such an interesting thing to see then people now questioning this alternative that we were given about secondhand, and kind of then realizing that, wait, something is not adding up. It reminds me of the whole brandy melville kind of craze that happened a few years ago on Depop, where people were actually complaining about so many Depop sellers selling bunch of brandy melville items, and usually they would actually not even give like a price. There would be like a startup price, like these items start at this amount, and then the item will go to the highest bidder. So people had to bid as high as possible, like then kind of in creating such insane price where we could you could see like a basic brandy melville t-shirt going for $300 or something. It was really, really insane. And it was also during a time where, because we all know that Brandy Melville likes to play with exclusivity. And if you're not a skinny, girly, preferably white, and, very pretty, wow, it's you're not really the target audience, but you still want to be part of it. So I feel like that because there was this whole kind of cultish behavior behind Brandy Melville among young girls. People were actually ready to buy at any price just to own a Brandy Melville thing. It was kind of a badge of honor, or a status thing to be able to be wearing Brandy Melville, because it meant that you were skinny enough to wear it, you were pretty enough, because when you were looking at the Instagram and all that jazz, it was always the same type of girlies, like young white skinny girls. And there were a whole type of prestige that was going about wearing and owning some brandy melville. And because of that, I feel like that so many resellers back a few years ago on Depop really kind of took the opportunity to just sell some garbage Brandy Melville at such a gorging price. And when you know that Brandy Melville is literally fast fashion, that's what it is. It is fast fashion. That's nothing very special. It's just that the whole culture behind Brandy Melville plays on exclusionary. So that's why so many people are kind of like, so many girls have their eyes on it, because there's this whole, like I said, status thing. But other than that, it's still very much fast fashion. And fast fashion is not good fashion. Fast fashion is very shitty quality clothing. It's very shitty working conditions for the people that literally have no choice but make those clothes, because they still need to put food on the table, they still need to feed their family, and like have a roof over their head and all that jazz. So fast fashion is not great fashion. But the thing is, because this whole kind of, we need to use secondhand and stuff like that, has pushed people into being like, okay, so I'm just gonna, in a way, abuse of this new craze around secondhand and sell my crappy fast fashion items on Depop. And I feel like that because of that, because Depop used to be really, really huge, but I feel like that less people are really talking about Depop, and especially here in Europe, more people are talking about vintage. Because like, one of the reason I hear a lot of people talking about vintage and using vintage more than they use Depop is because a lot of people were literally saying about how basically on Depop there's just so much crap, it's overpriced, and there's no point on being on there anymore. And on vintage you can actually find a really great gem for a very low price. The whole thing is, like, on Vinted, it's true. You can find a lot of, great gems and for a very low price compared to Depop. But the whole thing with Vinted is that it's filled with a lot of crappy fast fashion clothing as well. And again, like I said in my last video, I'd rather have, those secondhand clothes going back into the market than being incinerated or sent into the global south and causing issues over there. But the whole problem is also the fact that there's so many clothes, so many fast fashion clothes in the market right now that is being produced and that has been produced, that now we are plagued with secondhand, crappy, fast fashion clothes everywhere. Last week I talked about the physical shops, because that's what I do most. Like, I'm more of a like charity shop, let's go to the charity shop girly, than I am really using apps. And the thing is, even on the apps, it's just crazy. I said that a lot of people switch from Depop to Vinted because of the whole like marked up prices, and the fact that there was so many craps, and people were actually tired of seeing people selling fast fashion at such a high price point, that they were just like, what the hell is going on with Depop? And I think the whole situation that also happened with Depop is that a lot of Depop sellers became like made Depop their whole jobs, which, by the way, some of them still have like amazing stocks and amazing thing, and they really do take the time to make sure that they're really finding good vintage gems and not fast fashion crap. But a lot of them are also just people who just buy a bunch of very cheap secondhand fast fashion in the thrift shop and then just resell them on Depop. And because Depop become more professionalized, because more people were doing that, I feel like that then it kind of got filled with a lot of opportunists, who just were doing that for a quick buck because they were seeing that some people were actually making a living out of it without really considering the fact that the people who were actually making a living out of it are actually people who were actually doing the job to find and get like really nice stocks of really unique and rare pieces that they can actually sell, they can resell. And I think it created a sort of fatigue for a lot of people who were on Depop. And then like Vinted came about, and then a lot of people, and when I say a lot of people, I know that Vinted is also available in the US, but I just don't know how popular Vinted is because you also have like ThreadUp and Poshmark. You have so many of them, more than we have here in Europe. So let me know, like, if Vinted is also something that is quite popular in the US, because here in Europe, in a lot of European countries that have like Vinted, it's quite popular, and I feel like that more people are actually using Vinted than they are really using Depop. And especially, I think there's a difference between how the the apps are really kind of used. I think like people go more so on Depop if they really want to find like really unique, never seen before, rare pieces that are really vintage, that is sold, but that are sold by vintage sellers, because they do know like they very trustworthy vintage sellers. Whereas on Vinted is more like anybody and their mothers can be on there and sell on there. And as I was talking with some friends, we kind of realized that a lot of the people who also like sell on Vinted, especially when it's middle-aged women, they don't really know much of the value of the clothing. So if you do pay attention and you do kind of take the time to really scroll through your Vinted, you can actually find really, really beautiful gems for a very, very good price. And it's actually really vintage things. And it's just that usually it's, like our mothers, our grandmothers who want to get rid of some clothes. So what they're gonna do is that they just put them up there, so it's gonna, go. So I feel like that, in general, Vinted is kind of used as, seen as this like everyday people using it and selling on there. Nobody is really making a career out of Vinted, whereas Depop is more like the more kind of vintage stuff. Like if you really want to find like one of a kind pieces, you go on Depop. And that's where also people get to be Depop sellers and make a living out of it and have their shops and all that jazz. So yeah, so there's clearly a difference between the two apps. And in general, like there's many more secondhand apps that have come into this world, because again, as every trend in a capitalistic society, when something becomes really popular and gains momentum, like suddenly capitalism see profit being made in there. So it kind of then creates a kind of submarket where you see the rise of entities profiting off this market coming into the whole loop. And the secondhand app is basically it. The fact that now you also have like luxury secondhand apps such as Vestiaire Collective, the Real, it's it's a whole kind of like, it's a whole business. Like even now, um luxury brands have like their own pre-loved section. That's how big secondhand has become. So because of that, of course, like since it's become something so big and so huge, suddenly it's going to create like new issues. If you do pay attention, the reason why those issues keeps being perpetuated is because the system is the problem. The reason why now we having these marked up prices and having this whole kind of, you know, burden of crappy fast fashion clothing plaguing the secondhand market is because the capitalistic system that we live in allows that, because the system is not being changed. And as long as you don't like change the system, well, the problem is not gone. It's just going to be transferred into like the new market that we're giving us, but it's not necessarily being eradicated because we're not actually really pointing the fingers at the source of the problem. And now I know that some apps such as Vestia Collective, they completely ban the upload of fast fashion brands because, again, like it's Vestia Collective, so it's like luxury and really vintagey stuff. So they don't want their apps to be filled with like major fast fashion brands. And also then you see the problem that it caused where people are just marking up and price gouging their fast fashion items just for the fun of it, because they can do it, because they know that there's a market of people who would do anything to either acquire it, or they gullible enough to believe that it's really vintage and it's really rare, it's really this and it's really that. So like it has become such a tricky situation, where like sometimes I also kind of wonder, because technically on Vessia Collective, you can't upload, you know like fast fashion. But knowing that so many people on apps such as Vinted and Depop and I guess Poshmark or any other secondhand app, because I feel like that every countries do have their own secondhand app where they can actually upload also clothing and stuff. Like I've seen this whole trend of cutting off the brand tag. So basically, you don't really know that the clothes is a fast fashion brand, and I feel like that a lot of people do that, especially for ultra fast fashion. So they can actually then be like, oh yeah, well, I don't really know like what brand it is, because when I got it, it was already cut off and all that jazz. When basically usually it's them cutting it off because they do know that they're selling Shein at like a gracious price. But it's like it's easier to get away with it if you're just like, yeah, no, there's no tag on it, or you just make up whatever, because since they're not tagged, maybe it could be like a very like vintage things and a vintage piece, and you just receive the piece and suddenly it's just very flimsy. Suddenly you just know that it's just plastic. Suddenly you just realize that it's just ultra fast fashion. I've heard so many stories from friends and people like on the internet, literally being scammed, being told that what they were buying was vintage, and it just turns out that it was a bunch of fast fashion and ultra fast fashion, crap. And they kind of just realized it as they received the whole bundle, and or they purchases, and just by the touch of it, they were just like, yeah, no, it's literally just um fast fashion or ultra fast fashion. So it's now clearly the whole kind of reselling world is kind of being side-eyed big time, because we can clearly see that the reason why people are doing that and why people are kind of being opportunistic, some people have actually managed to make a career out of that. And of course, when people see that, there's always going to be like ill intent people that are going to just jump onto the trend so they can make a quick buck, and they just have like no consideration for the buyers, because for them it's just like, huh, whatever. Why should I really care? Because all I care about is making the money and not necessarily playing by the rules, which then is actually detrimental to the people who've been playing by the rules and are now being less trusted. Because, like, how can you trust someone if you kind of realize that the whole industry is plagued with opportunistic people, with people who actually just buy a bunch of like fast fashion and crappy clothes to just resell them for like a insane price just to make a profit. It's then kind of like, it's such a bad look on the whole profession and industry, when it started off with good intention. And I know that people who actually really love it and do it for the love of vintage, you know vintage clothes, are still doing it for it, and still trying to do their job properly. And the thing is, again, because it has become such a profitable market, the reason why now a lot of a lot of vintage, like, shops have to also like sell at a highest price point, is because now they also have to compete with other big apps, such as, like I mentioned, Vestia Collective and the Real that is actually selling also a lot of uh, luxury and vintage brands. So I feel like that then when the market kind of gets co-opted by you know corporations, suddenly the competition becomes also higher. And you need to actually then, in order to stay afloat and to stay alive in this market, you have no choice but kind of align yourself with the prices that are out there, because it's just otherwise, it's just like, when the competition is so kind of high, you have no choice than doing that. And the thing is, the price gouging of fast fashion items has caused this whole kind of, then if they're gouging fast fashion, well, the vintage and luxury, authentic brands items also need to be gorged up a bit, because it's actually true vintage, so it can't be at the same markup as Forever 21 shorts, like sequin shorts, but it has to be like slightly higher because it's a better quality item. But the reason why they had to mark up the price of this vintage item is because those regular fast fashion secondhand crappy clothes have been marked up as well. So it's kind of creating this whole kind of issue of, okay, so now we're marking up the fast fashion brand, so the vintage needs to be also marked up, because vintage has always been slightly like expensive than like crappy regular fast fashion brands, for a reason. Because vintage brands, like true vintage, are clothes that are made for lasting longer, for there's actually a really, like, with good quality materials and stuff like that. So clearly it can't be the same prices as fast fashion. But again, the whole problem lays on the system. We are not targeting the right culprit. It's really great that we made secondhand a thing, and we made it like a good thing to use secondhand, but we're still not addressing the issue. And that's because we are not addressing the issue that we're now seeing these problems happening within the secondhand realm, because it has become just a capitalistic, profitable realm for the society. So, of course, now people are competing with each other to make a quick buck. I know you've seen the title of this chapter and you knew it was about to come, right? You knew it was about to then like revolve around capitalism, because the reason why we are seeing this issue happening is because of capitalism. Because when capitalism sees like a realm being like, trendy, gaining prominence, becoming more popular, suddenly it just sees, an opportunity to make profit. So then the whole kind of industry is shaped around making profit rather than really caring about, if we take the second hand, realm, about really the quality of the clothing and the ethics of this whole secondhand market. It's all about then, oh, there's actually like some free spot to even make more money. And there's a reason why so many apps pop up suddenly where you can resell clothes. There's a reason why we've seen more and more like vintage and charity shops popping up in the streets as well. There's a reason why so many fashion brands have now decided to also have a section where they like sell old clothes, or where you can actually bring back some of your old clothes and they can give you like vouchers or whatever, just to encourage you to bring back some old clothes. Like there's a reason why, like this secondhand fashion has been pushed onto us with the rise of, climate consciousness and people being like, guys, we literally driving ourselves into our own demise, and we really need to do something. And instead of really taking this into account and be like, okay, what can we do to really, really make sure that we have a future and the planet is not burning? Maybe considering the whole like production process, which is like a huge issue. It likes to give band-aids, and that's how I also see secondhand fashion in this society, in this day and age, and under this capitalistic neoliberal system, because it's just a band-aid that they gave us, being like, okay, we've we've heard you. You said that you were a bit, worried. I mean, a bit. We've heard that you were worried about the whole planet burning, about the uncertainty of the future. And yeah, like you've also seen what happened in the Rana Plaza 10 years ago, and kind of, like the whole fast fashion industry being exposed. So we understand that it might be scary. So what about you use secondhand? We're not going to change anything about, what we talk about, like we're not, but at least you can feel better and have like a good conscience by consuming. But you're still consuming, but in a kind of better way, so then you kind of leave us alone. We keep doing what we're doing, and pretending that we actually care when we actually don't, and it's always kind of funny when then you look up more about those, like secondhand market from luxury brands, and you know that those luxury brands are owned by corporations who have literally no intent of slowing down the process because they're making banks, you know. So it's literally just, yeah, we're just gonna have a little something so people can actually be fine. Or when you see that some like the secondhand apps may be bought by a corporation again, and you just, at this point you're just like, who are you fooling? I know they're fooling a lot of people because a lot of people are not really aware of that, but it's just so kind of disheartening when you see the fact that basically the whole secondhand market that has been existing for a while, that's not new, um, has now kind of been used in a very capitalistic way when it just, again, like I said, a band-aid. We're not really solving the problem, because solving the problem would mean kind of questioning the system, which is neoliberal capitalism, and kind of seeing that it's actually not sustainable at all. Like on its own, when the system on its own is not sustainable, how can we bring up sustainability within some industries in a like inherently unsustainable system, you know? For me, it never really made sense. That's why I decided to be more critical with my consumption, and just critical in general with how we try to bring sustainability without actually pointing the fingers at the elephant in the room, which is capitalism, which is a system that was doomed to fail, you know, from the start. Because a system that only benefits the few and not the majority is not a system that is actually great. It's not a system that is made to last, you know? So when the system in itself is not sustainable, how can we really bring sustainability in industries, you know, apart from just it being like a sort of, oh, just we're just going to make you feel better for your consumption and your conscience, so we're going to bring that, you know, but not really, you know, kind of trying to question the system and be like, maybe we need to do something, you know, because like I said in previous videos, when you look at you know, for example, like the H&M Conscience collection, that's supposed to be like a more sustainable collection, which makes no sense, because what do you mean you're bringing like a conscious collection? So it means that just a very small part of your collection is supposedly sustainable, but you still keep producing the same way. So you keep partaking in the problem. You know, the fact that, you know, people don't really question that has been something that got me, you know, pulling my hair out, truly being like, don't you see like how absurd this look, that, you know, those brands are actually coming up with sustainable collections, but it's just like a section of their collection. And if they do, it's just a joke. Just like, was it Boohoo that brought in Kourtney Kardashian as like the sustainable ambassador or whatever? And it's just like, Boohoo, who are you fooling? Who are you fooling? You know? And I feel like that we live in a system which is just trying to see how far they can go, how far they can play with our intelligence, and how far are we going to take it until we actually say enough, you know? Because again, the reason why you can see this Depop seller selling those sequin Forever 21 shorts at such a, you know, insane price is because the system has allowed it, because it has been going on for a while, you know, and as long as people can make money off of it, people are going to do it. Like I mentioned in my last video, there's about 80 to 150 billions, billion items of clothing being produced every year. We are 8 billion people in this world. There's literally 10 times more clothes in circulation right now that there are people. So, of course, when there is so many clothes being produced and a lot of them being fast fashion clothes, of course, then suddenly the secondhand market is going to be plagued with the like issue of the first hand market. So basically, the first hand market issue is just displaced to the second hand market. That's what the whole problem is not solved, because the system that is creating the issues in the first place in the first hand market just comes back to us in the second hand market, because it's not solving anything. It's giving us band-aids so people can like be happy and keep consuming, because the thing is, this system, this neoliberal capitalistic system, needs us to keep consuming in order for the system to have a reason to sustain. And even I'm putting sustain on quotes, like to really sustain, because like the system is not really sustaining, because the system is literally in free fall. It's dying, because it's so not sustainable at all. It's dying. And but in order for it to kind of keep going, it needs people to consume. And if people are not consuming, how are we going to justify the use of neoliberal capitalism? You see like how like effed up the whole thing is, because it needs us to keep being in perpetual, you know, combat with the system, with like the issues that are being caused, because the system just does not want to heal itself, because the people who benefit from it don't want to like change the system, because why would you change something that you benefit from, and that you benefit from financially, like big time, you know? So it's the whole kind of thing of the reselling issue that we're seeing, that we're witnessing, that we have been witnessing for so many years, is still an issue today because of the system. And as long as we not targeting the system and truly coming with more sustainable solution for the system, because the moment you're gonna like fix the system in a more sustainable way, then you can bring up more sustainable solution for other industries. Because if the system is healthy, other industries are going to be healthy. But if the system is actually sick to the bone, well, the other industries are also going to be sick to the bone, because the industries are relying on the system, you know? So it's the whole thing of, we need this capitalistic system to go and to be replaced with a more sustainable system that is benefiting the majority, and that is also in line with the environment. And then we can actually really implement sustainable solutions. Until then, all the sustainable solution that we're going to come up with is just going to be a farce. It's just going to be like a facade to just maintain a sick system that is actually not working, that was doomed to fail from the very start. The conclusion is always going to be the same, but I feel like that people need to hear it like as many times as possible to understand that the system is the problem. And as long as we don't like change the system and tackle the system, changes are not going to happen. And we're going to keep seeing resellers selling fast fashion at ridiculous prices. And the whole secondhand market is just going to keep being pricier and pricier and become literally more of a circus than anything else. Because if we don't tackle the core of the problem is going to remain. Well, people, that is it for the video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, share it around. you know, Maybe other people also feel very strongly about the whole situation than I do. And let me know in the comment what are your thoughts on this whole reselling Depop drama and just reselling in general. And if you also do share similar opinions, or if you want to add more, please, the comment section are open. And in the meantime, I'll see you in my next video. Love always.